Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery, and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's episode is called Wrestling with Murder. Mexico City, Mexico has struggled with crime. New policies have been enacted throughout the years that seem to have curbed some of the violence, but violence against women in particular continues to be a problem. According to Excelsior.com, a 2015 city government report found that 2 of 3 women over the age of 15 in the capital suffered some form of violence. But it was many years prior when a significant part of the female population that is normally spared from violence was gripped by more than fear. Starting in 1998, Mexico City was plagued by a serial killer who targeted only elderly women, ranging in age from 60 to 85. They would be known as El Mataviejitas, or the Little Old Lady Killer. They were believed to have taken the lives of dozens of elderly women. The victims were found badly beaten. Some were left unrecognizable. Many were stabbed before being strangled with something either from the home, such as a pair of tights, telephone cords, or curtain cords, or the killer's bare hands. But there was one odd foreign object sometimes used for the strangulation. Investigators believed it might have been a stethoscope. Witnesses described a muscular figure near the crime scenes in a dress with very thick blonde hair who seemed to like to wear the color red. This led investigators to believe they were looking for a man posing as a woman. Holding a clipboard, they believe that he may have gained entry to strangers' homes under the guise of being a social worker. Although fingerprints were found at the crime scenes, they couldn't be matched to anyone known. No DNA evidence was found. At a press conference, the federal prosecutor stated that they were looking for, quote, a very clever and careful man with a very brilliant mind. Officers continually canvassed areas hoping to catch the killer in the act. Notices to the public were sent out on paper and through the media urging women to be careful. A bust was even made of the killer from witness interviews, but nothing investigators did seemed to pay off. As months turned to years, Mexico City police started to believe that they weren't looking for a cross-dressing man, but possibly a transgender person. In 2003, 49 transgender prostitutes were brought in for questioning, outraging the LGBTQ community. None of them were found to be connected to the murders. It would happen again in 2005, this time in an attempt to find the killer using the fingerprints, but no one was a match. Initially, the murders followed a pattern of about 3 to 4 a year, but by 2005, that had sped up, and investigators knew they had to find their killer fast. Investigators would finally receive the break they needed on January 25, 2006, but it would come with another heavy expense. That day, 82-year-old Ana Maria Reyes opened her door to find a social worker with a stethoscope, clipboard, and ID asking for a glass of water. Anna agreed to let the person into her home, but as soon as they entered, the person hit Anna on the head, stabbed her, then strangled her with their stethoscope. Afterward, the stranger stole valuables from the house and fled. What the murderer didn't know was that Anna was a landlord and had tenants. One of them was coming home at the same time the attacker was leaving, and when they saw what happened to Anna, they ran after the woman, screaming for help from the police along the way. 2 officers heard and intervened and soon realized they had the killer they had been searching years for. But it wasn't a transgender person at all. It was a woman named Juana Barraza. Her fingerprints were compared and found to be a match to 10 of the crime scenes, but she's believed to have committed many, many more. Juana was born on December 27, 1957, in Hidalgo, Mexico, to an alcoholic mother. At age 11, she was sold by her mother, Justa, to a 26-year-old man in exchange for 3 beers. Justa herself had been sold into the sex trade at an early age as well, and had given birth to Juana at the age of 13. For 5 years, Juana suffered abuse and multiple miscarriages while her mother told the rest of the family that it was Juana's choice to go with the man. Finally, her uncles found where they were living and took Juana home to her mother and her father, Trinidad Barraza. Trinidad frequently cheated on Justa and boasted that he had lost count of how many kids he had fathered after his 32nd child was born. Her mother eventually left Trinidad, but Justa's addiction to alcohol would eventually end her life. By that time, Juana was 20 years old and ready to put the horror of her childhood behind her. This led her to move to Mexico City to start over. Starting over would prove to be harder than she thought. She had received little in the way of education. As more and more obstacles presented themselves, she continued to struggle, and her anger towards her mother grew and grew. While she tried to make ends meet, she studied in the medical field and sold popcorn. It was during this time that she found a profession that she excelled in: lucha libre wrestling. This type of wrestling was first started in Mexico and is pretty different from American wrestling. In lucha libre, the contestants wear masks and use rapid acrobatic techniques to take down opponents. Juana excelled in the sport and was able to make a living by not just participating, but also organizing tournaments as well. When she competed, she wore a pink costume and mask and was known as La Dama del Silencio, or the Quiet Lady. That name was picked because she was said to have a shy, silent personality. By 1995, Juana had given birth to her 4th child and had been married twice, with neither marriage working out. Now, working as a luchador wasn't covering the bills, so Juana started to steal from others. She started out with shoplifting and then moved on to burglary. She would take the stolen valuables to pawn shops. 1996 was the year Juana and a friend came up with what they thought was a foolproof plan. She would dress as though she were in the medical field, gain entry to elderly people's homes, and then rob them. But that would quickly evolve. Juana started to target women who were the same age as her mother before her death. Once she was in their home, her anger was let loose and their lives were taken. Their valuables were stolen, and Juana also took items that she would keep as trophies. When Juana was caught in January of 2006, she was carrying a stethoscope, pension forms, and a card identifying her as a social worker. Under questioning, she claimed that she only stole because she had been forced to financially, but when police pressed her, she told them that she had killed because, quote, "I hated the ladies because my mother mistreated me, hit me, always cursed me." The police were quick to present her to the media. They even dressed her in a red shirt and stood her by the bust that they had created, cementing in everyone's mind that El Mataviejitas was actually La Mataviejitas, and she had been caught. Despite further questioning and fingerprint evidence, Juana would initially only admit to the murder of Ana Maria Reyes. Later, she would admit to 4 murders, but denied everything else. Authorities thought she was responsible for killing around 50 women. At her trial, her defense claimed that Juana had been used as a scapegoat for the majority of those murders. They also tried to have her declared mentally unfit for trial, but doctors said that she was completely conscious of her actions. On March 31st, 2008, Juana Barraza was found guilty on 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary, including 11 separate counts of murder. She was sentenced to 759 years in prison. Today, she sits in the Santa Marta Acatitla prison, still proclaiming her innocence. Juana's infamy brings her much attention, with songs dedicated to her, documentaries, and television shows. Juana claims that she sleeps quietly at night and feels happy with her life. Thankfully, with her incarcerated, elderly women can now sleep quietly and safely at night and not have to live in fear of La Mataviejitas. Case cracked. I would like to thank thedailystar.co.uk, lavanguardia.com, Reuters, The Guardian, and escholarship.mcgill.ca. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. So, Christy, I understand this case also has a place in terms of Mexican crime history. You want to tell us about that?
It does. This was the first time in Mexico's history that a search for someone identified as a serial killer was launched by law enforcement. And she also received the largest sentence for any murder in Mexico City.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of a sentence like that in
I
hundreds of
haven't.
years. I've heard of like maybe around 200 years or like up into 3, but yeah, that was a serious sentencing.
Yes, it was.
And then of course, outside of being the first profiled serial killer manhunt, we also have it turn out to be a woman, and it seems like law enforcement just didn't want to think in that direction for some
Mm-mm.
reason. Can you tell us a little bit about the stats on this? Is this something that should just be out of consideration like that?
Well, in the US, for data from 2019,
Yeah.
there were over 10,300 male murders to about 1,400 female murders. So while there's far less women, it's still about 12% or one murderer for every 7. So, it shouldn't be discounted.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why they would push so hard. I mean, admittedly, this is a strong woman. Her stature is, I mean, she's doing wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
She's extremely strong. I think, I guess for a profiler, maybe you would look at those types of things and you'd be kind of talking in the odds, okay, most likely going to be a male assailant. And the numbers kind of point to that, but it's not a complete exclusion of females that would be capable of doing something like that. And then when you roll in the robbery aspect as a motive, I would have a feeling that that kind of opens it up even more in terms of, the female population being a potential contender for that. But
You would think so. There could be some misogyny in there with the time,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, 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 it seems like it. It was mentioned that she collected some trophies from her crime scenes.
She did. She's a serial killer.
Yeah.
After her arrest, police found an altar in her home to the death cult figure Santa Muerte.
Okay.
She's a folk saint, popular first with thieves and drug smugglers, but now she's popular with the working class and poor Mexicans as well. That was where they found her trophy room.
I wonder if they were able to line up like some of the items to certain scenes and then.
You would almost think they had to with what they
Right.
charged her with.
Right. But then I'm also wondering, did they have ones that they couldn't line up? Because they've got this
That's
assumption that there's up to 50 victims. Like, where exactly is that being fueled from? I don't know. You always get a little concerned. Like, is law enforcement going to lump together these other cases and just try to write them off by doing this? And
yeah.
I actually saw a comment where she had said, she's like, "You guys are trying to pin this all on me. It wasn't all me. Watch what happens when you put me in jail. These are going to continue." And effectively, that article said that no, it didn't really continue once she was put away.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Speaking of trophies, I don't think I've ever seen a suspect have to make an appearance effectively in front of the media where they actually rolled out the bust of them and kind of put her in. I mean, the bust was wearing almost the exact same shirt that she was. And admittedly, I thought the bust was a pretty good job, but we know the story of how she's caught. Really, it didn't come into play. So do you think that was done to actually support the arrest efforts? Like, was it to show the public, hey, look, we're good at what we do. Look how close this bust was. Or do you think that law enforcement was actually trying to, in some way, swipe up credit for this? And like, hey, look, we caught the person. This is the person we were going after.
Investigators were criticized for misleading the public with that.
Yeah.
And according to Criminal Minds Wiki, in reality, Juana had been previously at a police station and was even interviewed on a television program about wrestling just a week prior.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. I actually saw the clip of that as well. And yeah, that's kind of unbelievable. So probably as good as the bust was, it's not really a component in the solve on this case. And it's just interesting that, for the media, they had to kind of pull that out. And
it was pretty heavy handed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they would have done it from the perspective of like, I don't even know if I would have done it with the bust, but like they had the wanted posters also, the resemblance was very strong. If they could have just had one of those up behind and like, hey, look, our team finally found the person. We're confirming it's the person because here you can see, the poster we put together or the bust we put together, and here's the actual person. I don't know. I don't know, but it was interesting to see that, yeah, they were criticized for kind of misleading the public. I think I kind of understand it.
Well, and they might have had to do that. I mean, like I mentioned, and like you mentioned, they weren't looking for a woman. That hadn't crossed their mind.
Right.
Maybe the public would have doubted them unless they just kind of smacked them with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Chrissy, thank you so much for all your hard work on this episode. We really appreciate you, and I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters, Michael Park, Hillary Green, Brandy Fry, and a special thank you to retired Sergeant Melinda. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordnarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Miriam recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord Narts story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe and bell icon down below if you'd like to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new Unsolved Mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord Narts channel.